Hello and welcome to Geek Addicts, the pop culture podcast. My name is Matt. With me is Mr. How Does He Do It? Bill Barber.
Your guess is as good as mine. I, to be honest, at this point, oh, this has been a long week. I love like looking at the contrast between we have the video versions for these, and I love looking at like the. I record 3DO on Tuesday, and then we record these on Fridays. And if you look at me in the 3DO episodes, I'm all like full of energy and awake, and then you look at me by Friday, and I'm just dead.
Yep.
So,
I'm totally with you there, man. It's rough sometimes. I know we were debating whether or not we wanted to record a double last week, and between my cold and just the exhaustion of the week, it just didn't have it in me.
Yeah, I ended up staying up super late because I had to do some editing that night. Anyways, that whole weekend was just rough in general
Mhm.
uh, with everything. But Alex is doing better, thankfully, and
Well, I'm glad to hear it.
she's moving on a bit. But yeah, it's been a hell of a week. Just long and just tiring,
Yeah,
basically.
understandable. You been catching up on anything over the past week, or
So I recently got back into comics, and I've been kind of on a comics binge as of late.
gotcha?
Don't ever get into comics, people. It's a lot.
Yeah, the only way I'd ever get into American comics is if I had like a Shonen Jump esque app I can read it all on.
So there's a fun little fact about that. This might be dangerous, but um there's two apps that you can get on your phone. There's Marvel Unlimited and there's DC Infinite, which are essentially this exactly what you just described.
Fair enough. I knew stuff like that existed. It's just this. I don't know. I know that there's no way I'd ever get into collecting like at least physical editions. Like reading it online or something like that's reasonable. I could work that out. Well, first of all, I have too many expensive hobbies as it is, and not enough money to go around.
Uh-huh.
So adding another one just is not in the cards.
Yeah, so I'm like long past the days of collecting floppies and like single issues because no thanks. That's a lot of
Mm,
work. And the nearest comic store that gets new issues in is like like 45 minutes away.
yikes.
And I don't want to make that drive once a week. So
Understandable.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't remember if I mentioned it or if it was afterwards or not, but I caught up with Spy Family, the manga, on
nice.
Shonen Jump, so I'm up to date on that.
Oh, so you
Um,
saw you read the volume 11 stories with the hostage situation, I'm guessing.
yeah, with the bus,
I
yeah,
fucking love
that
that arc. That was
was
such a good
great.
arc.
I can't wait to see that animated. It's gonna be
I know.
great.
Well, I just can't wait for it just for the ending like payoff of your fucking running to the disaster.
Yeah, it's great.
It's like, ma'am, how did you get here so fast? Oh, I ran.
Also, like spoilers to anyone who's anime only, but like Damien's mom,
Yeah, we
oof,
don't know yet. There's a lot of questions there.
oof. There's some resentment going on there.
Yeah, we don't know about her yet. There's a bit a bit of a questioning.
Also, I don't know if it was just due to like dubbing or whatever, but like it didn't really like register in my mind that um what the hell is his name? But whatever the Daddy Desmond. I forget his first name.
Oh, Desmond. Desmond. Fuck, I don't remember his
I
name.
know it's Damien and Dimitri or whatever are the kids.
Donovan.
Donovan, yeah.
Donovan.
It didn't register from watching the anime dubbed that he was practically the president because they keep referring to his wife as former first lady
Yeah, yeah,
in the
kind of.
manga. So,
Yeah,
but
there's
that was
some.
that whole thing was interesting. I like that. Now we have Plan C involved with Yor and her.
Yeah, that. You know something about the dub that I noticed that like you'll never be able to unhear once you connect the dots.
What's that?
Lloyd's voice actor is the same guy as the guy from Death Parade.
Yes, I did know that, and it's definitely odd.
And they're like they're kind of the same character, sort of. It's
It,
interesting.
they are, but they aren't. It's an interesting contrast between the two.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, aside from that, I finished Bully
Oh, nice.
the day after our last recording, actually. Um, and almost instantly, I was like, I finished the game, and I still had like 2 hours to play video games. And I was like, I was jumbling between a bunch of them that I have for my PlayStation, and I ended up starting Dragon Quest Heroes 2.
Hmm.
Pretty fun game so far. I'm enjoying it, definitely.
It's a Muso game, so I mean those are all really fun. They're just they're kind of games that you have to be in the right mood to play because they're basically just like endless hack and slashers.
It's basically Dynasty Warriors with Toriyama art.
Yeah, it's funny how there's like a Muso for everything now. Like there's the Fire Emblem ones. There's Persona. Persona 5 has one of its
Yeah,
own.
yeah. There's a Zelda one too, isn't there?
I think well, Gundam technically did it first, but Zelda was like one of the first ones to really start the whole idea of like having Dynasty Warrior games with different universes.
I mean, I'm totally into it. I mean, at the moment, Dragon Quest is the only universe that I'm really interested in delving into. But also, oh, excuse me. I promise there won't be as much coughing this time. I am feeling a lot better. But I found out after I started playing it that um, Dragon Quest Heroes was released like as like a combo pack on Switch, but only in Japan. And I'm so butthurt that we didn't get it here.
To be fair, the Switch version of Heroes is not very good.
Yeah, still. Well, I mean, it wouldn't bother me as much if it had if the PlayStation version had couch co-op.
True. The thing about the Switch version is that it's one of the games where you really notice how underpowered the Switch was in comparison.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because you look at certain things and you go, ooh, like that's not as nice.
Yeah, I mean, but at least with graphics wise, like because of like the Toriyama art style, like I don't think the graphics would suffer very much.
It's so the models aren't bad. It's more the environments and it's pretty distracting. Like
That's understandable.
it's one of the ones where people were really kind of like, oh, that's pretty noticeable.
Yeah. But
I mean,
yeah,
it's not as bad as Mortal Kombat 11, which is like, holy shit, like that. It
yeah,
looks terrible, yet it plays great, which is
yeah.
kind of an interesting contrast.
I've played that one on Switch too. I totally know what you're saying.
Yeah, like it's amazing it runs, but holy shit, it looks terrible.
Well, that's the thing is I don't mind like a graphics dive as long as you keep the playability of it solid. Like that's how The Witcher is. Like the graphics for The Witcher isn't like it's definitely took a serious nosedive on Switch, but it still plays smooth enough.
Yeah,
So I mean, for that at least, I'm okay with it. Um, but yeah, aside from that, I'm really close to beating Chrono Trigger. I'm on
nice.
the like little side quest stuff at the very end.
Okay, I won't spoil it, but Chrono Trigger has multiple endings, so
Yeah, it's like 16 endings. It's different
yeah.
endings. I did want to ask you though, does it matter the path I take to fighting Lavos? Because you can fly there on the Epoch, you can jump in the bucket, or you can go to the castle.
You're
Does
not
that
supposed to you're not supposed to fight him right away. You're supposed to go through some of the stuff first before you fight him.
Yeah, I definitely intend to, but there's three different ways to get to him. Does which path you take, whether you go to the bucket or take the ship or go to the castle, does that affect the ending, or is that
I
just three paths
it's
to the same goal kind of thing?
I honestly, it's been forever since I've played. I think they result in different endings,
Okay.
so it might be a good place to save and then have as a backup save.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least for this run, I'm planning to just play it as it is and just kind of I don't know, just do whatever my instincts tell me to do. But aside from that, um, like whenever I go back to play it again, like if I can find a guide that will tell me how to trigger each different ending, but without actually spoiling what the ending is, then that's probably what I'll try to do. But at least for now, I'm just playing it through as a game and
Yeah,
letting things happen as they happen.
That's the best way to play it the first time around, just to truly experience it. It's a fun game to replay though and get the different results.
Yeah, for sure. I've been enjoying my time with it for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
collecting wise, I don't know if I said it yet on here, but I'm on a bit of a self-imposed like hiatus from video game collecting for a little bit, just because
mhm.
I don't want the hobby to get ruined for me, because I was kind of getting burnt out with it, and I was like, I need to take a break. It's too expensive, and I'm not having fun right now.
But there comes a point where like if there's nothing out there that you're really like that interested in getting, you're just buying it just to buy it. And at
Yeah,
this point, I think you've probably done that enough.
yeah. Like lately, I can only buy so many shitty PS1 racing games before I get bored of it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, for the sake of say like the 3DO, like it makes sense to
yeah,
get more games for that for the show. But
that's the only
outside
real
of that,
console I'm still collecting for right now, just for show games. But even then, that's like few. That's like every couple of weeks I'll buy a new game.
yeah.
That's kind of why I got back into comics, because I needed a new like kind of something to keep me interested. Because manga wise, I'm pretty much caught up on all my ongoings. Now
Mhm.
it's just new releases when they come out.
Yeah.
Um, and then other than that, like I'm really not collecting anything else regularly. So I kind of wanted to get back into comics. I'm not really doing like I said earlier, not collecting floppies. I'm mostly getting trades, the collected editions,
Mhm.
which is nice. Mostly just older ones because I'm trying to catch up on old storylines and stuff. Um,
I gotcha.
I did actually buy a couple floppies though, like single issues. One of my fun collecting goals, not really to read them. I actually want to get them framed as wall art, but I've been trying to collect all the wedding issues.
Wedding issues.
So like the Superman and Lois Lane, Superman the Wedding album is a good one.
I gotcha.
I have the Spider-Man Mary Jane wedding issue on order, and then I have Wally West and Linda Park from The Flash coming in.
All right.
It's just a fun little gimmick because I've had the Superman one for years,
Mhm.
and it's I have the trades of all of these, so it's like I don't really need to read the singles anymore. So I kind of want to get them framed because they're kind of cool.
Gotcha. Um, are you planning on getting the Sandland game when that comes out?
Yeah, probably. I got to budget for it, but I did plan on picking it up.
Mhm.
Trailer looked good, so
Yeah, it looks really fun. It has like a very do you know who developed it?
it's the studio that did the Diamond and Pearl remakes and One Piece Odyssey.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, I think you did tell me that before. And I was gonna say, like, when I was looking at the trailer and the gameplay footage and stuff, it looked very it looked a lot like Kakarot.
It did to a degree, probably similar graphics engine. It's definitely not CyberConnect 2 though. There
Mhm.
because gameplay wise, it looks very basic. Um, Not in a bad way, just in that kind of like serviceable way.
Mhm. Well, it definitely had more vehicle options, which is cool.
True. It looked a lot like One Piece Odyssey to me, where it's like it's a good looking game that technically is functional. It just isn't anything super crazy or out there. It's a very serviceable game, I think is the best way to describe it.
That's fair. I have it on pre-order, so when that comes out, I'm definitely gonna be jumping into it. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye out on new releases. It's kind of like when the time comes.
I'm pretty
We
much.
mentioned.
Mhm.
Oh, go on.
I was just gonna say I'm kind of going on a Toriyama binge right now. It's
Yeah,
between Chrono Trigger, Dragon Quest. I've just finished the Cell arc this week of Kai. Taking a little break before I jump into Boo, but yeah, the Sandland game coming out. I'm kind of going crazy with that.
Hmm. No, I gotcha. We mentioned Spy Family earlier. Me and Alex are going to see. At the time of this recording, we're going to go see it tomorrow, so that's kind of cool.
Cool. We're
Yeah.
probably going on Sunday, so
Oh, nice. Yeah, there's a bunch of people in the community that are going to go see it, so
mhm.
I'm looking forward to it. I like more
Yeah,
Spy
me too.
Family.
Definitely.
Um, yeah, nothing else really there other than that. You want to jump into our topic?
Sure.
All right. So for this episode, we're doing a bit more of a chill episode, kind of like how we did a while back we did our talking about our favorite movies. This time we're going to do an episode talking about our favorite TV series. Um, so we decided for this episode we're going to have a kind of a self-imposed. We're going to keep anime out of the discussion for this one because honestly, that's probably its own episode at some point in the future. Just getting deeper, like doing a deep dive into animes and stuff.
Yeah, I mean we've kind of already started that with the individual episodes with Dragon Ball, Yu Yu Hakusho, Yu-Gi-Oh, all that.
Yeah. So for this, we're gonna keep the animes to the side. Um, I think otherwise though, it doesn't matter if it's cartoons or live action. We can talk about any sort of show we watched back in the day.
Yeah, as long as it's not Nickelodeon live action show.
Yeah, those have been ruined. I've already talked enough about those on GNC. Like it's funny, I rewatched that episode and like I'm already like my opinion's already changed from then. Like I've already have it's like it's gotten even more negative since then. And I'm just like,
Well, it's one of those things where you sit and you stew on it for a while, and
yeah, and then you kind of rethink about it and you're like, wow, these shows were really not great.
Mhm. But yeah, I don't know where you want to start, or how we're framing it. Like, we just talking like childhood shows, or
I was thinking childhood teens, just stuff we've been watching.
fair enough.
Um, I mean, because frankly, I don't watch a lot of TV anymore. I'm not gonna
That's
lie.
fair.
I kind of stopped around my teenage years, so that probably will work out fine in that regard. Because once I hit the teenage years, it was basically all anime from there on out, and like a few specific things, but nothing super major.
Yeah. Well, the first couple ones that come to mind for me personally are like the Nickelodeon cartoons that never seem to end, being SpongeBob and the Fairly Odd Parents.
See, it's crazy to me with Nickelodeon because I still remember like the early '90s when Nickelodeon was like, I swear, like 60% of their shows were the Klapsky Kupsko shows,
Mhm.
like Rugrats, All Real Monsters, the Wild Thornberries.
I still love Rugrats.
Rugrats is good. There was some fucked up episodes of that show. I'm not gonna lie.
Yo, that remember the episode where freaking where I forget, I think like Tommy took off his diaper or whatever, and then like Phil and Lil take off their diapers, and they're looking at
Yeah,
each other like, Lillian, Philip, like they're just like in shock. Like,
yeah, like stuff that goes over your head as a child. Um, I remember the episode where Tommy gets fucking like abducted in the
oh
yard.
yeah, and
Like,
they try to like ransom him because they thought that he was from like a rich family or something.
yeah, no. If you actually read the note, they were gonna kidnap Donald Trump's kid. It is the most
Oh
fucking
god,
hilarious shit. It's like wow. It's like,
Jesus.
and then you're like looking at the neighborhood there, and it's like, why he would never be living in this neighborhood.
No,
Like,
you'd have
let's
a
be
way
real.
nicer house than that.
Yeah.
Although,
Yeah.
although you got to admit, like friggin' for a dude who's like pretty much just is like a self-made, like I make toys and sell them to these companies kind of guy. Like, he had a nice ass house.
Oh yeah, the Pickles house.
He had a big
Yeah,
ass house.
except in some season episodes where it was decrepit as fuck because they had for the episode.
Mhm.
um, yeah, that show was fucking weird.
You know,
Like
I love that show because it's just such a solid example of parenting in the '90s. Like,
oh yeah, and how
it's so true.
like I always just remember like I always remember the Ice Cream Mountain episode where it's just like Stu and what was Stu's brother's name?
Drew.
Drew. Yeah, Stu and Drew are having like a golfing like match because they're trying to one up each other, and
Mhm.
then the kids are just like fucking like getting inside all the shit.
Yeah, because they were told that they were gonna get ice cream. Then they like, oh, we're gonna stop and do putt first, and
Yeah.
they see the ice cream part of the mini golf thing, and they yeah, as that show is
Oh yeah.
great.
And they sneak inside of it and they find out it's rigged because the guy who running the mini golf thing was rigging it.
Yep,
And they end up actually pulling the paper that was rigging it out and they end up getting holes in one.
it's awesome. It's a wicked fun show.
I remember the vacation episode because like you can't find that episode anywhere anymore because the song had like legitimately the song Vacation by the Go-Go's in it. And it's like because of the licensing, you just can't find that fucking episode anywhere anymore.
Because obviously with my daughter, we've watched Rugrats like here and there over the past couple of years, and one thing I noticed is that the guy who composed the music, his name is Mark Mothersbach.
Oh, that's yeah, he's the I'm pretty sure he's the guitar player for a band.
Yeah, actually, now that you mention it, I looked into him and he's done a bunch of stuff, and I'm pretty sure he's like a well-known guy.
Yeah, he's from he's the lead singer and keyboard player of Devo, so the song Whip It.
Oh, okay.
So it all makes sense.
Yep. That's about right.
Rugrats was big. The other big one from that period to me was Hey Arnold.
Yep.
That show was fucking complicated.
That show was really dark at times.
Yeah, it was. Well, it was Matt Groening's brother-in-law did it. I can't remember his name right now, but yeah, he was that show was so different compared to like the other Nickelodeon shows at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was weird having like that kind of suburban setting or not urban setting for a kids cartoon,
Hmm.
and not
Yeah,
having it like I don't know. It's just the general vibe of the show is so different.
Yeah, it was definitely very unique for the time, and there's a reason why it stuck around so long. Um, I'm trying to think because then there was also like Rocco's Modern Life. That was another. That show was insane. It was just literally insanity.
I remember watching it as a kid, but I could not tell you a single thing about it.
It's one of the ones you got to rewatch because there's so many fucking inside jokes that like kids will never get. Like my favorite is the one where, Rocco is literally like he gets hired as on a sex hotline because they don't say it, but literally he's like, "Oh baby, oh baby, oh baby, this is Big Hit." Like it's like the dumbest. Yeah, that's one that like the parents in the room probably were like, "What the fuck?"
Well, those jokes, those jokes were written for the parents, though. I mean, you get a lot of that in the shows like Rugrats and stuff like that. Like,
that one was blatant though. Like, holy shit.
oh yeah, for sure.
It's funny, like you brought up SpongeBob. SpongeBob debuted in '99.
Yeah, it's been around for a long time.
I still remember the pilot, like when that launched. Bubble stand, I think it was.
Yep. Yeah, because wasn't there like no words in that one? It was just
No, that was a Reef Blower. That was like an
right.
In between episode they did.
Gotcha.
Well, it's funny because they Bubble Stand was the pilot. Well, it was the first episode that aired, but the pilot episode was aired it afterwards. But that was the one where he gets the job at the Krusty Krab.
Yeah, that's the one I remember. Yeah,
Because that has the Krusty Krab. There's the Reef Blower interquel. The only time they ever did like a weird interquel episode that's like silent for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And then the episode where he meets Sandy.
Oh yeah.
Because then Bubble Stand was the pilot. I always remember Bubble Stand just because it was like, what a perfect way to start a show.
Yeah, that was I don't know. The like first couple like 2-3 seasons of SpongeBob was like top tier cartoons.
Everything up to the movie, the first movie.
For sure. I always loved the Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy stuff.
Yeah. Like because that was an inside joke because it was Ernest Borgnine and I'm forgetting his the other Barnacle Boy's voice actor. It's gonna bug the shit out of me.
Well, I don't know. The joke went over my head. What's
So it was okay. So it was Ernest Borgnine and Tim Conway. Tim Conway was Barnacle Boy. They were the main characters in the show McHale's Navy.
Okay.
So there was just it was a reference for the parents watching that watched that show back in the day, but they're literally just playing their characters from that.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, it was a fun thing like that. I still remember the first Plankton episode.
Yep,
it's crazy.
What about
crazy shit.
the episode You Forgot the Pickles.
I remember that one. My favorite to this day, because me and Alex still quote it like every day, is the late night delivery episode
Uh,
where SpongeBob and Squidward have to deliver the pizza to the guy, and
right.
they get lost. But
Yeah.
I remember that episode because there are so many quotable lines in that, like Squidward, we're saved. They're like, it's just a stupid boulder. It's not a boulder. It's a rock. The pioneers used to drive these babies for miles. And then when he runs over Squidward, Squidward just starts chasing him. He's like, hold on there, Jethro.
Jesus.
There's that. And then the line me and Alex quote all the time is when they deliver the pizza and the guy's like, where's my drink? You forgot my drink? My diet, Dr. Kelp? We always quote that whenever we're buying soda or something.
Oh,
we're getting a pizza.
My favorite episode growing up was always the Bubble Bowl episode.
Oh well, yeah, because Sweet Victory.
Yeah,
Sweet Vic. That song is still like I still remember when
that song
slaps. It does. When Steven Hillenberg passed away, there was the petition to get it played at the Super Bowl, which the NFL gave all SpongeBob fans the giant middle finger at.
Bullshit.
But I remember because NASCAR then to take a dig at the NFL made a whole promotional video for the Daytona 500 and used Sweet Victory in it. Just as a middle finger to the NFL, which was kind of funny.
Solid.
Yeah, SpongeBob was classic. Like just so many great episodes.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if I see an old episode playing, I'll always sit down and watch it because it's just you can't not.
Yeah, those first few seasons just like still hold up to this day.
Yeah.
Fairly Odd Parents was another one that I really liked, but it definitely overstayed its welcome.
Oh, for sure.
Once they started
before the baby showed up.
The baby was pretty blatant. I think that the best finale for that show would have been like something like Channel Chasers was I think like the point where I thought it really would have been a good ending.
I loved that one.
Channel Chasers was really good. All the TV movies were pretty good in general.
The Jimmy Timmy Power Hour.
I remember that just because the 3D versions of the Fairly Odd Parents cast are horrifying. Nowadays.
Yeah. You want to talk about horrifying 3D cartoons? Have you seen any images from the Rugrats remake?
Ugh.
Yeah,
I watched one episode and I just went, yeah, they're pandering at points and it's just not the same.
Yeah, I didn't even watch any. I just had to look at what it looked like, and I said, "Yeah, no way, that looks awful."
Yeah, I watched one episode just out of curiosity. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm good. I'd rather watch All Grown Up." For anyone who remembers All Grown Up.
Oh yeah. See, I liked that original episode, or like the little TV special they had for it. But
yeah,
when they made a whole series out of it, it was like,
It was fine. It wasn't something that I look back on fondly or anything, but
I love that all grown up to them was like 11.
Yeah, which at the time, well, I mean, because you kind of grew up with it, so at the time that did feel like an adult.
True, that's true.
Oh, speaking of SpongeBob, I kind of wanted to bring up the whole like metaphor of SpongeBob, where like when you're a kid, you very much relate with SpongeBob, but then as you grew up, you slowly start to relate more with Squidward.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, I've always kind of been an old man at heart. So while I've definitely found Squidward annoying as a kid, I got it. It's like my annoying neighbor is at it again. Like,
well, it's like nowadays you watch that and you're just like, I understand this man on so many levels now.
Like he's sandwiched between the dumbest and most annoying people of the entire town.
He works a crappy job, not like gets paid bullshit. Just wants to like enjoy his like life, but like everyone just like shits on everything he does.
Remember the episode where he quits his job over the Mr. Krabs' first dime?
Yeah, and then they go on strike.
Yeah,
I remember. Do you remember when he goes to the he runs away and goes to like it's like that village of nothing but Squidwards.
He has like a retirement home for Squidwards,
and it's like he loves it at first, and then he realizes how miserable it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, being surrounded by people that are just like you, I can imagine would be fucking like hell. Because it just be like the same shit every day, exactly like that
Be dull
episode.
as hell.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh man, yeah, that was a classic. Going back a little, we had mentioned it during the Yu-Gi-Oh episode, but Saturday morning like cartoons and stuff. Like I still remember getting up every morning to watch Fox Kids in the morning.
Yep.
That was a great time because like you'd get up and you'd catch your Power Rangers every week,
Mm.
um, and then you'd get like a couple anime stuff. We're gonna leave out for now.
Yeah, I watched Power Rangers a little bit, but it much like Transformers, they just never really did it for me. I don't know why. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's just a weird thing with me. I know, like, I knew tons of kids who loved Power Rangers, and like, I mean, I found it enjoyable to watch every now and then, but it just didn't catch me the way it caught a lot of other kids.
It was very much just like high energy bullshit, like and
Mm-hmm.
just like the most ridiculous nonsense. It was, I mean, because the whole thing that makes Power Rangers so fascinating is when you discover years later that it's actually a westernized version of a Japanese product.
Hmm.
Because essentially, it's basically they took the Super Sentai like footage and they basically would take all of the actual like in costume sections and then they like film their own footage using American actors and then they would intersplice it together.
You know, I think on some sort of subconscious level, that's what always threw me off about it, and I don't think I ever like actually noticed it like and recognized it for what it was, but I knew something was off whenever I'd watch it as a kid, and I'm thinking that's probably what it was.
Yeah, it's very much dumb. It's very much just dumb nonsense fun, and that's
Although
kind of
I
why I liked it.
although I do have a picture of myself when I was like 4 years old meeting the Red Ranger.
I think I was the Red Ranger for Halloween multiple years. So,
I might have been. I'm not
well, no,
sure.
not the Red Ranger. I was the Green Ranger.
Oh no, I remember what it was. I wasn't. My aunt's only 4 years older than me, so we had a lot of like that kind of stuff together. But she was the Pink Ranger one year for Halloween. That's what I was
Ah,
thinking of. But yeah, I always used to watch Captain Planet on Fox Kids.
Captain Play. That show is hilarious to me because like I remember like I think everybody watched Captain Planet, but like I don't know a single person who has positive memories of it.
I loved that show. Personally, I would purposefully get up early so I could watch it.
I could just like I never got into it. Like I think it was mostly just because I had other things I was into at that point. But it was always on like in the morning, so you kind of just you just watch it.
Mhm.
Um, See, I always thought it was funny just because like they all had their power rings, and then like the kid with like the one that was like the heart, it was fucking useless.
Yeah,
Like that one never did anything.
for real.
It's like, oh, some animals are out of control. I'll use the heart to stop their rampage. What? It didn't work? Like, shit, let's call Captain Planet.
I just like the kid with the fire ring. He just set everything on fire.
Then his main villain was Hitler.
God, I totally forgot about that.
In one of the versions, anyways. The other was it was pollution in another.
Oh, jeez.
Um, Hitler was in a lot of cartoons back in the day. Like, do you remember the Hey Arnold episode he was in?
No, I don't.
It was one of Grandpa's like it was the Grandpa like story episodes that apparently he beat up Hitler.
Oh, God.
It is such a like wild episode to watch nowadays because you're just like, what the hell is
Hmm.
this?
Um, yeah, I should think some other shows. Ed and Eddie was a one that I watched a lot. I loved Ed and Eddie.
So I remember me and Alex used to like we would kind of like channel hop like we'd go through like Nickelodeon phases
Mhm.
and then we'd just have like a Cartoon Network phase for a while and then we'd have a Disney phase and then we go back.
Mhm.
Cartoon Network was always Cartoon Network like during like the cartoon like early cartoon era. Their shows were untouchable.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember Ed and Eddie. I liked Ed and Eddie because it had a satisfying ending.
Yeah, for sure. Which I actually didn't actually see that ending until like way later. But
Same. I remember watching the Big Picture Show is what it was called.
mhm.
Um, Great way to end that series because it really kind of it to me, like all the foreshadowing in that show with like Eddie's brother is like you can tell just like by the way he talks and like how like anytime he thinks his brother's gonna show up, he's terrified. You're like, you realize real fast his brother's a piece of shit.
Mhm.
And then once you get the final reveal, it's like, oh, it all makes so much sense.
Yeah. Yeah, there was see, I never saw that one until like way later, but the one I always remembered was the Friendship Day one. It was like a TV special.
Yeah, that was a good one. I always remember Ed, Ed and Eddie because my mom fucking hated that show.
Yeah, mine too.
She'd always be like, I fucking hate this show. The fact that you guys watch it. And I'm
The
just
show
like,
was trippy as hell though.
oh, it was definitely that is like a prime millennial cartoon, in my
Oh,
opinion.
for sure.
There was that one, Codename Kids Next Door was another big one. Okay.
Yeah, that show, like I like that show a lot, but the episodes were hit or miss for me.
Well, yeah, some of them were just dumb, like, but then there was like others that were really memorable.
Like the Pink Eye episode, I hated that one.
Oh. Yeah, that was gross.
Yeah,
There were some real gross episodes, but there was also some really funny ones.
and the Delightful Children from Down the Lane were creepy as fuck.
Well, especially the reveal later that you find out they were just like brainwashed K&D kids.
Mhm.
I remember that. That was a good show. I still remember the finale of it where it was like half live action, half like animated.
That's bizarre.
It was kind of like this. It was kind of like a document. They did it like a documentary where they brought back the cast as adults, and the adults were played by live action people.
That's weird.
Yeah, it was really it was an interesting finale. That's for sure.
Mhm.
Um,
So you said you didn't really you always had trouble finding Kids WB, so you didn't really watch it too much.
well, because Kids WB didn't have its own channel.
Yeah,
It was just
it was WB, but like it was only on Saturdays and it was Kids WB.
so Kids WB. I had to find it, and I did find it because that's how I watched a series of shows I wanted to bring up in particular, the DC animated universe.
Yes, it's there's so many of those shows from, especially like that time period of DC shows was like the best. Like
Oh yeah,
Batman the
like
Animated Series, Superman, Justice League, Static Shock, Batman Beyond.
Justice League Unlimited. Um, yeah, Batman the animated series to this day still holds up. All even the fourth season, which isn't as good as the first three.
Mhm.
Even then, it's still just as good. I loved. I mean, I'm a huge Superman fan, so I loved Superman the animated series.
Mhm. I need to go through some of those shows again. It's been a while.
They all hold up super well. Batman Beyond in particular, I really liked.
I just wish that
Um,
one had a more satisfying ending because it just kind of ends, and it's not even
so
like a big thing. It just kind of stops.
it got a conclusion in Justice League Unlimited. There was one episode that kind of explained how it ended.
Mhm.
Because for a while, I always liked to think that like the movie Batman Beyond Return of the Joker was the ending.
Mhm.
'Cause that would have been a really good definitive conclusion, but they did actually do an they did an actual proper ending to it in uh, Justice League Unlimited later on.
Well, that's something at least. Um, yeah, I always hoped that there would be more like crossover. I mean, they did do some crossover stuff, but like
Well, yeah,
for
because there was
go ahead.
there was a ton of them in Superman.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of like with like Static Shock did crossovers. Like they had a crossover with Batman Beyond and Batman the Animated Series and stuff. I think
Superman had the famous World's Finest cross 3-part crossover
Mhm.
with it was where Batman the Joker is running amok in Metropolis, so Bruce Wayne has to go to Metropolis to stop him, and then there's a whole like subplot there.
Mhm. Um, but yeah, there was a lot of that kind of stuff. Like they had the Static Shock Batman Beyond crossover where Static goes to the future and meets his future self and all that.
Oh yeah, I remember that one because Static Shock was funny to me because at first if you didn't know if you weren't a Marvel, I mean not Marvel, if you weren't a DC fan, I guarantee you wouldn't even have realized that was part of the DC universe at first.
Mhm.
I loved early on though how like originally they kind of were like trying to make it seem like it was a that Batman was like because he read Batman and Superman comics in it.
Yeah. Well, he'd also talk about how big a fan of Green Lantern he was because this was the time period where it was the um it was the Black Green Lantern that at
John
that point.
John Stewart. Yeah, so that
Yeah,
was
I don't
actually
know a lot of their alter ego names.
so it's really funny about that because Superman the animated series actually was doing a lot of setup for the Justice League show.
Mhm.
Because they had the World's Finest crossover that everyone remembers. There was they did an episode where he races the Flash, so they introduced Wally West.
Yep.
And then there was a Green Lantern introduction episode. But at the time, they used the current Green Lantern in the books, which was Kyle Rayner, who
Hmm.
it was. So Green Lanterns are really confusing because there was a so in just for some comic back context in the book the comics there was an event in the 90s where like the main Green Lantern Hal Jordan went crazy and killed the
Hmm.
entire Green Lantern Corps.
Oh, geez.
And basically the before the Guardians went extinct, they gave the last remaining ring to this random, basically the first person they found, who
Hmm.
was Kyle Rayner, who was an artist and arguably like the most creative Green Lantern there ever was.
Hmm.
Then they gradually started reintroducing specific Green Lanterns, and then eventually, like John Stewart got his ring back. And I think the reason John Stewart got his ring back was because the Justice League show, because they when they were starting that, they used John Stewart instead of Kyle Rayner,
Okay.
which is one of the reasons why a lot of people like remember. A lot of people vividly remember the John Stewart as Green Lantern, and they'll see like one of the other ones, and they'll be like, "Wait a minute, who's that?"
Hmm. But yeah, Static Shock was always one of my favorites growing up out of the DC shows because it dealt with a lot of like serious things like gun violence and like gang wars and shit like that. Like,
Hmm. Yeah, that was a good one. I wish they crossed. I wish it did more after it ended because he didn't really appear in the Justice League shows other than the episode where they go to the future and they end up meeting Future Static at one point.
well, the crossover I always wanted was I always wanted him to have at least like a special with the Teen Titans, and they even referenced the Teen Titans at one point in the
S-
series, but it never goes
s-
beyond that.
So the problem was the Teen Titans show is technically a different universe.
Hmm.
So the DC animated universe ended with Justice League Unlimited, and then Teen Titans was its own thing because they also had the Batman, which was that other Batman show from the
Hmm.
time, which was also its own continuity. And there
Yeah.
was actually, because of those shows were all going on at the same time, there was actually a embargoes that were going on between each show.
Hmm.
Like Justice League wasn't allowed to use like any Batman characters aside from Batman because they were all being used in the Batman at the time, and
Okay.
Robin couldn't show up because Teen Titans were going on, which is funny because Nightwing appears in one episode at the time
Yeah.
as a background, which that's the real reason why those two universes aren't connected because Nightwing was already a thing by this point, and the Robin in Teen Titans is supposed to be Dick Grayson Robin.
Yeah, because he encounters himself in the future at one point, and he's Nightwing.
Yeah, it was really confusing because a lot of people don't realize that Dick Grayson hasn't been Robin for like almost I think like 30 years at this point
Yeah.
because he stopped being Robin in like the 80s.
Hmm.
Because the Robin at the time that show came out was Tim Drake, the third Robin.
Hmm. Yeah, that's just I don't know. That's just one of those things that always bothered me because it wouldn't have bothered me as much that they never had the Static Shock Teen Titans crossover, but the fact that they had that it was a Static Shock crossover with Batman the Animated Series, and Static straight up asks Batman like, "Hey, where's Robin?" And he goes, "Oh, to the Titans," and then they just move on.
Yeah, which is that's actually an interesting plot hole because So by that point, uh, it would have been Tim Drake Robin because Dick was already Nightwing. Huh, that's an interesting like kind of what if kind of like headcanon thing there.
Yeah, I don't know. It just would have been kind of a cool thing, but
Oh,
oh well.
another clue that the Teen Titans show was definitely a different universe is when Kid Flash shows up a few times. That's Wally West Kid Flash, and he Wally West was the Flash in the DC animated universe by that point.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know what the time frame on the Teen Titans show was supposed to be.
I have no idea. It's hard to say, honestly.
That all I know is that show really wanted to be an anime,
Well, I mean, I think that was like the big thing is they just wanted to make their own anime with DC characters.
which they later would do, which is kind of funny. But that show was very much trying to be an anime, and then they and then it got revived as the Teen Titans Go, which apparently is pretty good, but it's not something I'd ever watch.
Yeah, Xander was into it for a while, and it just made me angry.
It's nonsense. They did do a crossover with the original Teen Titans though, which was kind of funny.
I did hear about that. Do you remember the Teen Titans like trip to Tokyo or whatever it was?
Oh yeah, I remember that
They
movie.
fought the giant goo monster.
Yep, you can find that. It's on Max, I believe.
Yeah, a lot of those old DC shows are on Max now.
Yeah, you can
I was
watch.
kind of like watching some of them here and there at one point, but it's been a bit.
I have the DVD box sets for all the animated universe shows, but like one of these days, I really want to just sit back and rewatch all of those because they are really good.
Yeah, me too. Honestly, maybe that's something we'll have to do in a future episode at some point.
Hmm.
Even if we just tackle like each show individually.
I'd like to talk about some of the DC animated movies as well because those are all really good
Mhm.
too.
Same. And hey, with you getting back into comics and stuff, maybe the near future is a good time to start.
Yeah. Um. So moving away from cartoons for a bit, one of the live action shows that I still watch to this day because it is like the perfect background noise for when you're doing something else. You just need something in the background.
Hmm.
Um, Mythbusters.
Yep, we used to watch MythBusters a lot too.
I'll still throw it on all the time and just have it in the background because it is great for just like kind of like you need something just to stimulate your brain while you're doing something else.
Yeah, I'd say there's like a at the time I'd say there was like kind of like the trifecta of those kinds of live action like family shows. It was MythBusters, How It's Made, and Auction Hunters.
I don't remember Auction Hunters a lot. I remember seeing a few episodes. How it's made, there is an entire. I swear, like there's an entire channel just dedicated to how it's made these days because I swear it's
Mhm.
always on.
Oh yeah. Well, it's one of those shows where it's like that show can go on forever.
Yeah. I think all the episodes are on YouTube as well. So
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, Mythbusters was always fun though, just because some of the shit that they would do in that show was just complete bullshit. Like
Oh
you're
yeah,
like, okay, sure, let's
for
see if
sure.
this is real or not.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I always personally loved Auction Hunters just because it was just a silly show just to throw on, and you know that like a lot of like interplay between the people, like the kind of conversations and like rivalries and stuff. A lot of that is just played up for the show, but
Oh yeah,
it's still
like
really fun and like seeing the kind of random shit that people would leave in these storage units. It's always fun.
see I always watched a similar show that came out later called Storage Wars.
Mhm.
Although I'm convinced half that show was fake.
Yeah. Well, my favorite whenever I'd watch one of those shows is always when I'd see like one of them would open up and you'd see just a bunch of totes of like comics and like uh like figures and all this other stuff, and you'd see like half of them kind of like just like walk away shaking their heads like, oh, I don't want this one. I'm like, what are you, stupid? Like, you have any idea how much that shit is worth?
Well, my favorite now is like in a Storage Wars, there would be episodes where they'd get like a unit full of old video games, and I'd
Mhm.
see them be like, "Oh, they pull out an NES, like this is worth at least $200," and I'm sitting here going like, "No, it's not." Like
Yeah.
it's like No, you're not going to get like any of your estimated prices, but sure, whatever.
But then there's also the flip side of it when they don't open up a big thing of games. Like, oh, that's $2 for each one. It's just like no, you could definitely get more for some of those. Like
Some of them, but a lot of the times, like they'll open up the bucket of NES games and they're like, maybe like $100 for the bin, and I'm just like sitting there going like, maybe, but there might be a gem in there that for all you know.
yeah,
The best is though when they're like they pull out an Atari, like, oh, I can get 300 for this. I'm like, no, you can't. Like, you're not gonna get $300 for a fucking Atari. That
right.
probably doesn't work.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's just one of those shows that I always enjoyed throwing on from time to time. Like when I was living in the apartment, like I used to watch Auction Hunters all the time.
That
Um,
was a good one. I used to like Trucking War or Shipping Wars for whatever reason.
I
The
don't think
one
I
where
ever
it's
saw
like
that one.
it's just truckers and they like they bid they fight for bids on like things to move, and then the whole episode is about them taking their their like shipments across the country.
That's hilarious.
It's dumb as shit. It's mostly just because they all have personalities.
Mhm.
That and one of my favorites is like TV tropes. You know the website TV tropes?
I don't think so.
It's essentially an encyclopedia of just like internet terminology and like pop culture stuff.
Okay.
There's a page for shipping wars, and it's not referring to the show. It's referring to the concept of like romantic ships in like media.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
But the description is like, no, 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 this is not the page talking about naval combat, and no, it's not about the show about truckers going across the country fighting for business. And I'm just like, that's good.
That's funny as hell.
Yeah.
Um, but did you ever watch I forget what channel it was on. They were on the same channel, but it was Mansers and what the hell was it called? The Thousand Ways to Die. You ever see either of those?
Thousand Ways to Die. I went through a Thousand Ways to Die phase.
Me too.
Um, I like the earlier seasons, and then it got too fucking graphic, and I'm just like, this isn't even fun anymore to
Yeah,
watch.
and some of them are just bizarre.
Oh, they're all fake. Like a lot of them were fake.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, did you ever see the number one way?
I don't remember.
Because you know, in every episode they would show like it would be like a mix. Like it would be like, oh, this is number 43 way to die. This is number 362 way to die. And they would, it wouldn't be in a specific order. They would just throw random ones on there. But I just happened to see what the number one was at one point, and it was like an Asian couple, and like they were like so like sexually stilted that they had been married for like 3 years and hadn't had sex, and they actually went to go do it, and they were so nervous that they both had heart attacks during.
That's a way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of them were ridiculous. Like,
Or the alcoholic who who like convinced his wife to like give him a beer enema, and he died from alcohol
yeah,
poisoning.
like, I
Just
remember
drink
that.
it, dude. What the fuck? Like, what the fuck's the matter with you?
I remember that one. I remember the so this show had a lot of very offensive stuff in it too nowadays.
Oh yeah, both of those shows were they did not age well.
Like there was one where they had like this, like they were making fun of feminists, and like it was like a feminist who mistook a vibrator for an electric taser.
Oh god,
Yeah, and it was like, oh geez, like that wouldn't go nowadays.
how the fuck would you even make that mistake? Like
I don't know.
tasers and vibrators look nothing alike.
Their way of showing that she was a feminist was she had a sausage and she was cutting it with a knife, and I was just like, yeah, that's what they really do, I'm sure.
Oh god,
man. That was such a dumb
that
was such a dumb thing.
Mansers wasn't any better. It was honestly a lot worse with that kind of thing.
You know, a show that honestly kind of aged better though, but finding the show in its original form is almost impossible now.
Okay.
The original Jackass show.
I don't think I ever caught the show.
You'd see reruns every now and then. So it's on Paramount Plus, kind of. It's like a heavily edited version of it that isn't exactly accurate to the original.
Okay.
That show was funny to me though, because it was like the movies, but incredibly tame for TV.
Mm-hmm.
Some goofy shit.
Yeah.
Um,
Trying to think
I'm
if there are
trying.
any more of like those kinds of. Oh, did you ever watch any like the survival shows like Man vs. Wild or Survivor Man?
I occasionally, I always found them to be kind of stilted.
Okay, that's fair. Over at my
Um,
dad's house, we used to watch that kind of stuff a lot. So
I never really got into like those or like the drama shows. Like I never got into like Lost or anything or
I never got into that one either. I remember when that one was like that was like the show to watch for a while.
yeah.
Although I'm
Uh,
starting to kind of regret not watching it because I found out later that a lot of that was based on Stephen King's The Stand.
that's interesting.
So it kind of makes me want to go back and watch it now.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, I just remember because it was like that was like the thing for a while. Um, I could never get into it because it was one of the shows you had to watch every week, and I just didn't have the
Yeah.
patience. I mean, it was hard enough to do it with anime as it was.
Yeah, no kidding. And we got one of those every day too. Like
Yeah, and
at least at that time.
rarely, rarely in order, but that's besides the point. Um, so we haven't brought them up yet. Did you go through a sitcom phase?
I'm still going through one.
Okay. So what was your like sitcom of choice back in the day? Like for me, it was Friends, but
um, see, that's the thing is like, but it took a while before I got to an age where I had a sitcom of choice. It was really kind of just whatever was on. My mom's side of the family would put on Full House a lot, and while it wasn't my favorite, it was fine at the time. But at my dad's house, we watched Fresh Prince, and that was definitely the one I preferred.
yeah, for me it was like Seinfeld was always on. Um, Friends, of course, that was the big one. Like that was the one
Mm,
that I like. I mean, I still watch Friends. Like the way I see it is everybody has their one sitcom that they absolutely adore, and then the rest are kind of just take it or leave it.
yeah.
Like for me, it's Friends, but I do like a few other ones.
Mm.
Another big one I really enjoyed was Home Improvement.
Yep, I like that one a lot too. That one definitely
It,
had a super 90s feel to it though.
well, it was just Tim Allen being Tim Allen.
Yeah. And Roseanne, that was another one my mom used to watch.
I remember Roseanne. Um,
Um,
Married with Children, that was another one.
I didn't watch that one as much.
So I went on. So they actually sent me back when we were at Richards. They sent me on a training for like a couple days,
Mm,
and the TV had like no channels, but for some reason I could always get Married with Children, so I just watched that.
jeez.
Like it was Married and Children in the morning before I went to the training, and then I'd
Mm,
get back and I could get Comedy Central and I'd watch nothing but South Park.
fair enough.
Which
Um,
speaking of South Park,
yeah.
that show's still going and still holds up.
Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, that's one that I always go back to. You can't not. And I didn't really get actually start watching it until I was a little bit older. Not like old. It was like early teenage years is when I really started getting into it. But
To be honest,
um,
South Park's a show that really isn't for kids because kids just don't get it.
yeah. Well, see, it's the same thing with like King of the Hill. Like that was always on when I was a kid. My dad watched it a lot. Like and all the jokes went right over my head, and I just thought it was the dumbest show ever. I did not find it funny at all. My
And then you
wife and I
watch it
watch
now,
it.
and
My
and you're
wife and I
like,
watch it all the time now. It's fucking hysterical.
propane, propane accessories, boggle.
It's great.
I still remember the first episode where with one of my favorite jokes is Bobby is Bobby's all like he's like I'm gonna be a man now. I'm gonna get rid of all my kid stuff, and he's like talking to the neighbor's son, and he's like, "All right, do you want my Chandler or my Ross?" And the kid's like, "Chandler," because he doesn't. It's just like, yeah, that's a good joke.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, we just watched the That's My Purse episode last week. And my
That's
wife and I have been saying that to each other constantly ever since.
that's just a show that like embodies like that time period and like just like style because it there's something about it where it's just kind of timeless in a way.
Oh, it really is.
Because like the Simpsons seasons 3 through like 8 are untouchable. Like that is like the best animated sitcom probably
Mhm.
out there. But King of the Hill was basically solid all the way through.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I mean, even like Family Guy was okay for a couple seasons, and then it just became Family Guy.
It's just the same. Like every episode is the same. It's, a weird scenario. Oh, that reminds me of this time. And then we do a flashback.
Yeah,
And then we continue the story for 5 minutes. And then, oh, we got another flashback scene. It's the same formula every time. I
yeah,
get
it's
it. Like those kinds of shows have a formulaic kind of structure. But then you got shows like Futurama, which doesn't really have that formula. It kind of just tells different stories.
that show was canceled like 5 times, and it keeps coming back.
It's back again now.
Yeah, they finally brought it back because they finally got John DiMaggio to sign on.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
love that show because every episode had like a subtitle, and like one of my
Mm.
favorite ones is like when it came back for like the 4th time, it was like Futurama. It just won't stay dead.
I love like the in-universe jokes they make with that too. Like a lot of times they've been canceled and stuff. Like
We've been
they,
canceled.
they've done that so many times. It's so funny.
Good news, everyone. The idiot network people were fired for incompetence.
Oh, it's great.
I always remember that
Futurama.
one. Yeah, I remember that one. Then, like when Fry's like, "Hey, look at all those Bart Simpson dolls." Such a dumb show. I still
I
love
love
the
it though.
episode where Fry becomes smart because he ate the sandwich with the brain worms.
Yep. Oh man, that's another show that I always go back to is Futurama. It's just perfect.
It had such a good ending, though. I'm kind of bummed it came back just because now it's kind of like I don't know if they'll be able to end it the same way again.
Mm-hmm. I'm upset because I bought the damn full series box set. Now I don't have all of it anymore.
The full series box set. Whenever you buy a box set like that, that's like the full series. I'm always like, sure it is.
Yeah, well, we'll see in 5 years.
It's
Oh,
like
geez.
the Babylon 5 full complete box set is missing like 3 films that came out after.
Yeah. That's the one thing is I fucked up, but I got the box set that's just the series and it doesn't have the movies.
Uh,
So I still need to get the movies at some point, but no huge rush on that. It's all on Hulu anyway.
yeah. Um. What other shows am I thinking of?
Oh, doubling back to Kids WB, did you ever watch any of those like the Jackie Chan Adventures or Shaolin Showdown, any of that?
Oh, Shaolin Showdown. I watched all the time. That
Yeah.
show. It's. I won't say it's good still, but it's fun to watch.
Well, that show instantly caught me because I'm like, hey, look, it's Krillin.
It's such a Dragon Ball parody, like shonen parody. It's not even funny. Like, but
Oh yeah.
it was an interesting show. I like the uh what were the little MacGuffins called in it? They had
I could not tell you what they were called, but it was basically like the same idea.
Shengong Wu. That was
Is
what
that
they
what
were
it
called.
was?
Yeah,
I don't know
Shengong
how the
Wu.
fuck you remember that. I never would
I
have.
I have that full series on DVD. I found
Dude,
it.
where the fuck did you get that? Because I've looked for it multiple times and I can never find it.
I found them on eBay. I'm like not 100% sure they're real or not. They might be a bootleg for all I know.
The only time
Uh,
I've ever seen that series for sale anywhere was at an anime convention, and it was super bootleg. Like, what? In fact, everything at this guy's booth was a bootleg, and it was very obvious.
Yeah, I wonder if I can find them again. I found the full series. It was 3 DVD sets on eBay like years ago. See if they still have them. That show was super goofy though.
Hmm.
Some great voice casting though.
They did a sequel series too, didn't they?
Yeah, and it sucked.
Did it? 'Cause that's the only one I can find. I can find the sequel series on streaming and like random places like that, but I can't find the original. It's also been a while since I looked though.
Let's see. So you can find this. Yeah, you can find the DVDs on eBay still. They're kind of all over the place.
Oh, no shit. Maybe they just had a print when I was looking for them before, and they just randomly came back.
Either that or these are bootlegs. I'm not really hundred
Also
percent.
possible.
I'm not 100% sure.
But yeah, I definitely watch Shaolin Showdown a lot. But I also really like Jackie Chan Adventures.
Jackie Chan Adventures was. I love the fact that it's Jackie Chan Adventures, but Jackie Chan's not involved with it at all.
He's only there for like those little like 30-second clips at the end where it just shows him like hitting a punching bag or something, answering
Yeah,
like a question.
he wanted like nothing to do with that show. Apparently,
Well, he would like, I don't know, at least in those little segments or whatever, he would talk about it like it was cool, but
well, I'm sure he got paid a lot of money to say that.
I'm sure. But
Because I mean,
no,
if he really was interested, he would have played himself in the show.
true. But I don't know. I personally loved that show. It was actually really interesting. Like I actually had like real story arcs throughout. Like it started out really episodic with the talismans and stuff, but then it kind of goes beyond that and like kind of goes into a lot of like Chinese mythology stuff, and then later on Japanese mythology.
Yeah, I always remember too because like those shows all started on Kids WB, and then after that went away, they just kind of migrated to Cartoon Network
Mhm.
because that's where Justice League and then Justice League Unlimited ended up.
Yeah. Um,
Oh, speaking of like superhero shows, do you remember the '90s Spider-Man show,
yes.
the
Was that?
Spider Blood, radioactive Spider
Yeah,
Blood
yeah.
show?
Xander started watching that because
That show is
he's been
still
super into
pretty
Spider
good.
Man lately.
I still the freaking the Black Suit saga. I can't get over the voice actor for that show where he's like Shocker, like screaming like.
It's been so long since I've watched it, but yeah, Xander's been getting super into Spider Man lately. Well, he keeps flip flopping between Spider Man and Star Wars.
Oh, speaking of Star Wars, do you remember the original Clone Wars animations?
The like 6 minute ones that would play like
Yeah,
in between blocks.
the Jendi Tartakovsky ones, the ones that were done by the Samurai Jack guy.
I remember them, but they annoyed me when I was a kid because it wasn't any of the same actors, and I knew it wasn't.
Yeah, and I mean, unfortunately, you're gonna have to deal with that with these kind of shows. But like
Yeah.
nowadays, rewatching them, they've actually, I still think they're the best things that they did post the original trilogy.
Well, I mean, obviously now I'm at an age where I get it, but like at the time, if a voice changed, I was like done with it. That's why I stopped watching Pokemon.
Yeah. So I never noticed as a kid,
Hmm.
except for Inuyasha. I somehow noticed that one.
Um, yeah, try to think of some other ones. Oh, Scrubs was like the first like kind of like adult sitcom that I started watching, and I
I
was like
watched
really into that for a while.
I watched Scrubs when um I was on like a back when I was in like JROTC, we had like a training we did during the summer, and I was at the training, and I remember we'd have like downtime and like the TV we had. I remember I went on like a Scrubs binge during that because it was the only thing I could find for a while.
Mhm.
But I don't think I ever watched it again after said binge.
It holds up pretty well. I've watched it a few times. It's been a bit now. It was really racy for the time too.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those shows were like, it's funny how like certain elements of like shows like that will be pretty dramatic for the time, but then like you watch them now and you're like, oh, that's not that bad.
Yeah, that was just the one thing. That was like the first like couple seasons of Scrubs was like really cartoony with the jokes and stuff. And then
Yeah,
like it's weird because it's like at the beginning the jokes were super cartoony, but the characters were pretty solid. But then as the show evolved, the jokes kind of became more like less cartoony, but the characters were more cartoony, if that makes sense.
yeah, no, I get that.
Like Turk started out like much more like of like not like super serious, like he would joke around and like have fun and stuff, but like he was pretty much just a dude. And then by the end of the series, like he's like giving JD piggybacks and shit.
Yeah.
Like,
Um, did you ever go through like phases of just watching like really old stuff?
um, not until I was older.
So like for me, like one of the biggest ones I can think of is like when I went back and I rewatched all of MASH.
Okay, I've only caught like a few episodes here and there of that.
Yeah, MASH was a big one. I went through a whole like period where I watched like all of Emergency.
Hmm.
That was a cool show. Old school shows like that were different because the humor was a lot less quippy and a lot more like it kind of hit like it kind of was like had a punch to it, and then it would all of a sudden go back to like grim seriousness.
Yeah,
It was different.
yeah.
It was,
I think it wasn't until I really started getting into Star Trek that I started like going back and watching older stuff.
yeah, because like one of like the oldest like sitcoms I can think of is like Taxi
Hmm.
with Danny DeVito and like Christopher Lloyd, and a bunch of older actors.
Yeah, it's Andy Kaufman.
Hmm. Jeff Conway is in there.
Hmm.
So it was a good show. I find like older sitcoms like that were better written, like Cheers, um, Frasier,
Hmm.
like Wings and stuff.
Yeah, we after Francis was born, we went on an I Love Lucy binge.
Hmm.
It
That's
was
another
pretty much
good
I
one.
Love Lucy and original Star Trek.
Nice. Um,
Oh, and
I never
John Wayne movies.
nice. I one show I never got into was I could never get into The Office.
Yeah, me neither, honestly.
I've
I don't
tried
know why it
multiple.
just never really appealed to me.
I've tried multiple times, and it's just like I get why people like it, but it's like it just does nothing for me.
It was the same for me with Workaholics.
Yeah, I never got into that one.
Like people would always
Um,
tell me to watch it like a bunch when it was like really big, and like I watched a couple episodes, and I was like, I just don't get it. It just doesn't seem funny to me.
yeah, it's like that, and I never could get into How I Met Your Mother.
That one I actually really like. I think that show's hilarious.
See, I couldn't just because I watched one episode. I'm like, this is a Friends ripoff.
I mean, pretty much. But I mean,
That
that's kind of like how a lot of these kinds of. I mean, all sitcoms are essentially the same when you think about it.
yeah, it was
Just
also
different settings and different characters.
it was that one, and then also I found out like the ending was really bad, and it kind of just killed any shot of me while finishing it.
It grows on you, honestly. Because the first time I watched it, I did not like it either, and it was the same thing with my wife because we recently, like in the past like year or so, watched through the whole series together, and she really liked the show all the way through, and then she got to the ending and she hated it. But like once you give it time to breathe and think about it, you start to realize that it actually is a good ending for the show. Like
And then
it's one of those
then
things that does grow on you.
and then it had a sequel series that was so unnecessary.
Yeah, I haven't even bothered.
Um, but we haven't even brought up that '70s show. That was a big one.
That was gonna come up eventually. I watched
Yeah,
that show like religiously for a long time, and I still go back to it. I have it on DVD.
yeah, I've got the box set as well. The final season still kind of sucks, but
Yeah, that's not great because it's like Eric's gone, and like Donna
Kelso's
just kind of
gone.
sucks in that
all
season.
all the characters are super out of character,
Yeah,
um, except for Leo. But I mean, that was just
well,
Tommy Chong being Tommy Chong.
I love anything with Tommy Chong.
The ending was okay. I didn't mind the finale.
No, the
Um,
finale was good, and now that '90s show is really good too. I think.
that '90s show I like. I like elements of it. I won't say it's a top show for me by any means, but I liked it. I liked
I'd
some of
say
the jokes.
I'd say when it comes to sequel sitcoms, it's top tier
It's
because sequel sitcoms generally don't go over well.
see for me, my biggest problem with that '90s show was I liked it all the way through, but I won't lie, I cared more when Red and Kitty were on the screen than I did with any of the new cast. I was kind of like, but whenever the new cast was on screen, I always be like, go back to Red and Kitty. I want to see more of their bullshit.
I mean, well, let's be real. Red and Kitty were the glue that held that show together in the first place.
Well, I just like their whole like takes on like modern stuff, like when Red discovers the internet and he's like looking up like old actresses,
Yeah.
and then Kitty's like, "Oh, find me this whatever actor it was while you're at it," and it's just like I like their dynamic. It's still very good.
Yeah, I love
Then
the
like
episode. And oh god,
I was gonna say that, and like whenever the old cast shows up, even though also and Jackie were kind of flanderized, but that's besides the point.
yeah, I don't like that they ended up together in the end.
Well, season 8 fucked
Or
up that entire.
divorced or whatever.
Yeah, see the season, the whole changes in the final season of the original show really screwed up their character progression,
Hmm.
because she developed a lot from like the beginning to like season 7, and then like
Yeah,
just all of it's gone now. It's like that's great.
like, I really liked the ending, how she ended up with Fez, and then like they just completely just do away with that in that '90s show, and he's like a hairdresser.
Well,
Something.
he was a hairdresser at the end of the original series.
Was that what?
Well, he was a shampoo boy. That's what his job was.
But was he? I forget. In that '90s show, was he like an actual hairdresser? Was he doing something different?
I think he was a hairdresser. He'd been promoted
Okay.
by that. Yeah, because Kitty went to get her hair done and Fez was there.
Doesn't he own the shop?
I don't remember, to be
I
honest.
feel like he. I feel like he does. And isn't Eric is a Star Wars professor?
Yeah. Eric and Donna's cameos were fun, just because they were like probably the most like in character.
Yeah. Well, they were kind of like the most like. I mean, out of the kids, they were like the most wholesome couple out of all of them.
Well, I liked Hyde and Jackie the most, just because they had like the most development. But like, unfortunately, that's never going to be addressed again. So
Nope. They didn't even
'cause-
mention him.
no, they're not. You know, I mean, obviously everyone knows about
Obviously, yeah.
Danny Masterson at this point. It's like he ain't getting mentioned once during the show.
But that's the thing is, like, at least with like how Roseanne got canned and they turned it into the Connors, at least they mentioned the character and said, "Oh yeah, she died." Like they could have just wrote it away, being like, "Oh, Hyde's in jail for 30 years or whatever." You know, like they could have just had the one.
See, I think the difference is
that existed. He was there for 8 seasons.
I think the difference is like Roseanne Barr didn't get canceled for heinous stuff. She just got canceled because she has political views.
Yeah.
Danny Masterson is in trouble for some pretty serious shit. So
no, I totally understand that. I'm certainly not arguing on his behalf, but
yeah, it's just kind of.
I'm just saying the character existed for 8 years in the series. It's just kind of weird not to bring him up.
Yeah, I get why they don't want to, just because they don't want to even touch that. But
yeah,
it is a little weird that they don't even, because they don't even make jokes about the base. Well, they do find the weed in the basement, but they don't make any jokes really about it.
Mm-hmm.
That was a fun little. It was a fun little like thing that I didn't have any hopes for when it was announced. So
it definitely was higher than the low bar that I expected.
Yeah, I was expecting it to suck, and it ended up being pretty good. So
it was enough for me to actually want them to make more. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's getting a second season. So.
But yeah, that '70s show is definitely a big one for me.
What was that? What was the sciencey one that came out years later?
The Big Bang Theory.
I could never get into that show.
You see, I liked all the episodes I saw. I just never actually sat down to watch it.
See,
it was just kind of like whenever it happened to be on.
When that show came out, that was during like my period of like being super emo and hating everything. So like when that came out, I was like, this humor is literally everything I hate in the world.
Which is weird because you'd think that show would be like tailor-made for guys like us.
You'd think, but it's almost too on the nose, and it's like we watch it where you just go, yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like this is what the world thinks we are.
Yeah, that's true.
But also, it's kind of a generational thing. Like a lot of people in our age group prefer older stuff.
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah,
I watch Friends, and that's a show that's meant for like Gen X. So,
but, I watch a lot of Star Trek. Well, not so much lately. I've been going through phases of it.
Yeah, Star Trek's kind of like Star Trek's kind of timeless though, in a way.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of made that way, I mean, I watched a lot of Captain Kirk when Francis was born because obviously this is right after the tree situation. We didn't have Wi-Fi for a while, and I had the DVD sets for the original series. I didn't have anything else at the time, so we were just watching a shit ton of Star Trek, the original series.
Yeah. Well, Star Trek really was a progressive show. Like, there's so much stuff in there that like has held up super well even
Mm,
today.
for sure.
Even if like early the original series is kind of goofy at times.
Oh, extremely. But I mean, some of it is so great. Like I love any episode with the original series Klingons.
Yeah, they're so different.
Yep. Especially in the DS9 episode where they go back into an original series episode and they see a Klingon and they all just kind of look at Worf and he's just like, we don't discuss it with outsiders.
At least they got meta about it.
Mhm.
I mean, my favorite was the Trouble with Tribbles episode is still one of the best.
That was actually the episode they went back to.
Perfect.
Yeah, that one's
Uh,
classic. But
I
that's the
still
thing is I
remember.
didn't really watch Star Trek as a kid. I didn't actually start watching it until maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
See, I did watch Star Trek as a kid just because my dad was big into it and it was almost always on.
You see, I didn't find out until after he already passed, but apparently my grandfather was really into Star Trek, and I'm wondering if maybe watched it with him a couple of times, but I don't remember it at all.
It's possible. I mean, I remember as a kid, Voyager was still on technically, so I remember new Voyager episodes coming out.
Hmm. Yeah,
Uh,
I don't know.
I remember my dad watching Enterprise whenever that came out. My dad really
But
liked Enterprise.
yeah, well, I mean that series definitely has its own following. I still haven't gotten around to. That's the only one out of like the older Star Trek shows that I haven't seen yet.
It is very slow to start, but it gets so good when they canceled it.
That's the consensus I generally tend to hear.
Well, because it was this typical Star Trek trend where season 4 is where it really starts to get good, and they
Mhm.
canceled it right at season 4.
Yeah,
It was like, God damn it.
that's weird though because I hear a lot of people say that about Voyager, but like I was really into those first few seasons of Voyager,
I
and
mean,
then I
they're
don't know,
good.
like towards later on, I started kind of getting like meh about it.
Well, season 4 of Voyager is like the peak of the series because that's really where they get like 7 to 9 in. The Doctor has his like is probably his best because that's when he's really going off on his weird character development moments.
Yeah,
It had Year of Hell, like all sorts of great episodes.
yeah. Wasn't that the one where Red was the villain?
Yeah, Red Foreman's the villain. That's
he
the
shows up a bunch of times in Star Trek.
there's a lot of actors in Star Trek that just you wouldn't expect.
I think he was like the president of Earth in one of the movies or something, or he's like the leader of the Federation or something like that.
Maybe. Uh, we actually we should we're talking about sci-fi now. There was a big sci-fi like boom during the 90s and 2000s.
Mm,
There was a ton of sci-fi shows. Most of them didn't make it past a season, but
yeah, I didn't watch many of them honestly.
my dad has a bunch of the like season, like the the complete series because you can find them all.
Mm,
Um, I still remember watching Battlestar Galactica, the original series.
mm,
Um, it's funny as hell to watch now because it's super campy, but I prefer it over the 2003 series, which just gets way too complicated for its own good.
yeah,
My friend had explained how it ended to me, and it actually hurt my brain. So
yeah, those ones are always rough.
yeah,
um, but it's funny bringing up sci-fi in that time period. I know we're kind of edging like to the edge of what we could consider TV because it's technically an internet show, but I watched Red versus Blue a lot.
Red versus Blue was very good. The old Machinima and Rooster Teeth days, back when both those things were still relevant.
Yeah. Yeah, like the first 5 seasons of Red versus Blue, I watched like constantly back then.
It's insane to me that Rooster Teeth is dying. Like it's going away very soon.
I think they're already done. I think they already closed the doors.
I thought they were finishing up a few things and then they were shutting down. I don't know. Haven't
I'm
really
not
followed.
sure. Well, I have the first 13 seasons of Red versus Blue on DVD, so I'm not too worried about that.
Oh, you'll be able to find all of it easily still because it's all going to be on YouTube probably.
Yeah, and even though they're shutting the doors, was it is it WB that or
I think whoever owns WB owns the remains of it.
yeah, well, either way, like it's not like it's all just going into the ether. It's still owned by the parent company in anyway. So I mean, that
They'll
stuff still exists, and I'm sure they'll still sell stuff from it. But
they'll keep Ruby going probably because that still makes money. But
yeah, well, it would be stupid of them not to, honestly.
yeah, Red versus Blue is pretty good. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else. Like there was. It's
I
funny
mean,
because
there's
there was a
definitely
lot.
other ones, but
Yeah, because I watched a lot of the cartoons on Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon and stuff, but like I can't remember a lot of them
I
anymore.
mean, there's like there's Dexter's Lab, Powerpuff Girls, Cat Dog, fucking um,
Cat Dog is a show that I don't think aged very well.
no, it really hasn't because Xander got into it for a while when we were back at the apartment, and I would watch it with him here and there. Oh, excuse me. Um, and like I mean, it was nostalgic, and like I enjoy like watching an episode here and there, but like it wasn't a show I wanted to watch like a lot of.
See, my thing with it was like I rewatched it and I was like, this is a very unpleasant show. Like it's literally a show about these two brothers who are kind of like this weird social outcast that everybody in the world hates for no apparent reason.
Yeah, it's like
And
these
then
weird interspecies Siamese twins.
yeah, and like every episode ends with them getting the shit kicked out of them. It's like this is not a fun show to watch.
And speaking of, how do they poop?
Like it goes in one end, comes out the other. I don't know.
But is it both ends? Like I don't know. I'm so confused. I mean, dog's the one you always see eating.
Maybe that's why Cat's so grumpy.
That would make sense. Would make
Um,
sense. Oh, Avatar.
oh yeah, Avatar.
That was huge when it came out. Huge.
I remember. I still remember the first episode.
Yep. I
Boy
remember
in the
catching that.
Iceberg.
Watching it weekly.
Watching it weekly. I remember the big events. Like I still remember the endings to each season.
Yeah. Especially season one. Like that was like a big thing.
Season one was big. The ending to season two, I think, was the biggest wham episode though.
Oh, for sure.
Because like
But the
Zuko was
ending,
like just about to you thought he was gonna finally make the turn,
mhm,
the full turn to hero, and then he fucking goes completely the other way, and you're like, God damn it.
yeah. But like, was that the ending of season one though was just so like I think that one was the biggest shocker because that was the first like holy shit, people are dying in this show. Like we had at least two deaths, like of
Killed
like
the
known characters that are just straight up dead.
killed the moon.
The moon and that was that fire general guy that nobody liked.
Zhao the Moon Slayer.
Yeah.
Who came back in Korra later on.
Did he?
Yeah. Korra is a show I tried to like. I just couldn't get into it.
You see, that's the thing. For me, I treat it like the two Full Metal series. You can't watch them back to back. You have to kind of give each one its own room to breathe and kind of take them as their own things.
I just don't think the characters in Korra were as likable, like as memorable.
No, and the world isn't as fun.
No, well, the whole like reason why like Avatar was such a tightly written show was all the characters were very likable, but they're also extremely flawed, which made them all like very like relatable.
Yeah, well, it gave them a chance to grow. I mean, what's the point if there's no character development?
Well, it's like it's one of the reasons why I didn't like the live action was because like they infamously toned down Sokka's like sexist bullshit, but that was a big part of his character because like he literally 4 episodes in goes to this island of warrior women and gets the shit kicked out of him for being a douchebag.
Yeah,
And
like
then
that's the thing.
by the end of the episode, he learns to respect women. It's like it's character development.
Yeah, and even then, like he still has room to grow. But like that's the thing with, oh, excuse me, um, with a lot of these like reboots and remakes and adaptations of all this older stuff. Like I understand them wanted to tone down a lot of this kind of stuff, but they got to understand that when it was made, it was made specifically to be a flaw for them to grow out of.
Oh yeah.
So it's
Well,
like if you take it away from the beginning, then you don't give them any room to grow, and they're just going to be a stale character.
yeah, it's that's I hate them having to them wanting to edit things because of social norms. It's like you're killing the point. Like it's like the reason they did it that way is because it was different then. It's like
It's like banning To Kill a Mockingbird from schools because the racism makes the kids uncomfortable. That's the point. It's supposed to
right.
make them feel uncomfortable,
Yeah,
so they don't want to be racists. Like,
yeah.
duh.
I could get into a rant about how I hate the school system, but I'm not going to do that in this episode.
Yeah.
Um, for many reasons.
But
Um,
that's just how I look at that. Like these things exist for a reason, and they make these characters the way they are for a reason. And
uh,
when you remove
Avatar was
that, it
just
ruins it.
Avatar was just such a tightly written show.
Yeah, and it's not as long as you'd think. Like if you hadn't watched it since you were a kid and then you went back to it, like you remember it being a lot longer, but it's really short.
It's only 3 seasons,
Mm-hmm.
and they go by pretty. Season 3 is incredibly fast, but there's so
Xander,
much.
like when I first introduced it to Xander, he binged it in a weekend.
Oh yeah, it's a quick show. Well, because it's one of those shows that you start watching and you just can't stop.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I, I've actually rewatched it like twice in the last 2 years because it's just been one of those things.
It's definitely one of those ones that has that staying power.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why it's getting it's getting a live action reboot because it's it's one of those shows that was just like such a phenomenon when it came out, and it still holds up in every way.
Yeah. So you said you watched the new one?
I've seen a few episodes of it.
Is it at least better than Shyamalan's? I haven't watched it yet.
Oh, I mean, it's better than. I mean, that's not hard.
Yeah.
It so it feels like it definitely it's trying to be accurate, but it's one of those things where like it's fine, but it's like at the same time I'd rather watch the original.
So it's like the live action Full Metal in that way.
It's better than that, but not by much.
Fair.
Like in terms of live action adaptions, I'd rather watch Rurouni Kenshin.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm assuming One Piece is. I'm gonna just assume One Piece is better.
That's probably fair.
Yeah, yeah. It's just kind of one of those things where like it's fine, but it's like I I didn't really like it that much, so I'd rather just watch the original.
Understandable.
I kind of had this realization that I kind of just prefer animation
Yeah, that's true.
because I mean, like going back to superhero shows, like I've been watching some of the live action CW shows for
Mhm.
DC, and they're all pretty good. Like I have my hit or miss feelings with a bunch of them, but like I'll praise it all the time. But Superman and Lois is like one of my favorite versions of the character.
Yeah, I want to jump back into the CW shows, but I feel like I need to finish my I need to finish my Marvel journey first before I jump back because ironically, it's a lot easier to catch up with the Marvel movies than it is to catch up with the CW superhero shows.
Well, Superman and Lois is fun because that was after they did the whole Crisis reboot thing. So like you can kind of watch that one standalone.
Hmm.
I honestly watch a lot of them standalone too, which is kind of something I like.
I watched Flash before I watched Arrow.
Yeah, Flash, I'm so conflicted with.
I personally like Flash a lot. I thought it was a great series.
I like the show. I just don't like the fact that it's Barry Allen.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can.
Well, here's my thing. I'm a comic nerd,
Yep.
and Barry Allen is a very boring character in the comics. Like, because he died in the 80s, and then he was dead for like all of the 90s into the 2000s. and they brought him back arbitrarily in like 2009, and he's been back ever since. But like I've always thought that he was more interesting when he was dead.
That's fair.
The thing that bothers me about the CW show, the show's great. My problem is it's Barry Allen, but everything that makes Barry Allen interesting in that show is just stolen from Wally West.
I mean, that's fair.
And I grew up with it. I grew up with Wally as the Flash, so I've just always had a preference for him.
But to be fair, I mean, that's kind of just a theme with the CW shows in general, because a lot of the best Batman villains was just thrown into Arrow.
Yeah, Arrow is an interesting one because they've kind of the Green Arrow was going through a weird period when that came out because he's like completely a different character now.
Oh yeah,
Arrow is fine though. I didn't mind Arrow.
yeah, I definitely like that one. I liked Legends of Tomorrow a lot.
Legends of Tomorrow was really good. Supergirl was really good.
Yeah, they went back in time and met Tolkien. It's great, and George Lucas.
Yeah. I didn't watch a lot of the other ones, but I love Superman and Lois. That is like Tyler Hoechlin is like I think my favorite live action Superman like ever.
I watched a little bit of Supergirl. I watched like the first like season and a half, but it just didn't catch me. I don't know.
It gets
I'm
better.
honestly not a super big Superman fan in general, and Supergirl is just as uninteresting to me as Superman.
You got to get the right arc to really get you into him.
Understandable. But
You'd probably like Superman and Lois though, because that show's very interesting.
Well, I mean, at some point, I'm going to go through all the shows. Like I said, once I finish my Marvel journey, I'm going to double back and hit the CW shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Other than that, I think we've really kind of covered. We gave like a basic kind of rundown there. I mean, we could probably go deeper into a lot of these shows.
Yeah, if I actually took the time to like write out a list of all the shows I watched back in the day, we could definitely talk about a lot more. This was literally just straight off the cuff, off the top of our heads.
I mean, we could probably do a full episode about shows like Avatar. I mean, we've already done Star Trek episodes. We're gonna cover. We'll talk about the DC animated universe definitely in full at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think this might actually be a good point to cut this off, just because I mean I got to work tomorrow, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll probably revisit this topic in the future. But until then, guys, once again, thanks for joining us on Geek Addicts. You can find Geek Addicts on all the major podcasting platforms in its own feed now. I never always have to push that. And you can also find the episodes on YouTube with video versions. Hi, guys. And with that, you can also find all of our links at linktree/thebarberwhogames. And if you'd like, you could join the GNC Podcast Network Discord server, where you can find all things GNC, 3DO Experience, Geek Addicts, talk gamings, anime, or just general nonsense over there. And with that, everybody, we will see you all later.
Yeah, have a good one.